And if I may say, for all of our speakers, there is a clicker here if you'd like to use that.
Fantastic.
And
Thank you
I'll
so much.
depart the stage. Floor's yours. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Asel Sartbaeva. I am a scientist and also a co-founder and CEO of a company called EnsiliTech. So when I was thinking about what to prepare for this talk, I thought transitions. I wanted to talk about transitions, and I wanted to talk about what happens as we go through different transitions in our life. But then I was thinking about my life, and all my life, my professional life, I've been studying materials properties, material structures, materials going through different transitions. Usually we understand the mechanisms which happen during those transitions, what happened to them, and how we can use them to our advantage. So to mirror those two, I've decided to call this talk Materials, Transitions, and Phases. Just to give you a bit of background to what I will be actually talking about, I wanted to give you also a bit of background on me and to explain sort of where I'm coming from, and hopefully by the end it will all make sense. Please feel free to interrupt if you want to ask questions. I'm absolutely fine with that too. So, I was born in a small country called Kyrgyzstan. This is not working. Okay. A lot of the times when I say I was born in Kyrgyzstan, I get a blank look, so I thought I'm going to include the map. So you can see here where Kyrgyzstan is. We are a small country in Central Asia. Central Asia itself is sort of between Aral Sea, China, Russia, and India. And within Central Asia, there are 5 stans. Kazakhstan, which is massive, size of Europe. Kyrgyzstan, tiny, size of UK approximately. And then Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan are the other 3 stans. So we're a landlocked country, very small, in the middle of pretty much nowhere, actually. We are a very beautiful country, though. We have lots of mountains, lots of glaciers, lots of really beautiful lakes, and amazing, amazing nature in general. We used to be part of the Silk Route when Silk Route existed. And I've included some pictures of Kyrgyzstan just to give you a sense of where I'm coming from. So it's a gorgeous country with lots of horsebacking. Here on the bottom here, we have a picture of people playing a game, which is called Kokboru, which is considered one of the most violent and one of the most dangerous games. There's a Netflix series on it, so if you want to have a look, have a look. It's basically like rugby, but on horseback. So, gorgeous country. People are pretty much semi-nomadic today. They used to be fully nomadic before. Glaciers, which are melting at the moment very rapidly. And yurts are the houses in which we used to live before. Obviously, now it all has changed dramatically. But I hope it gives you a sense of where I'm coming from. I came from a very small country, very far away, which used to be in the Soviet Union before. After the breakup of the Soviet Union, suddenly doors opened, and suddenly we were able to actually travel outside. And for me, it was a big change, a big transition, because suddenly I was able to dream to study somewhere else. I had a dream to study in the UK. This is where I wanted to come. And eventually my dream came through when I came to study in the UK. So this is again one of the pictures of beautiful mountains, lakes, which we have around, and my daughters having fun on the beach. So I'm going to make now a big change to sort of and speed up in some years. So this was when I came to the UK. I came to study to do my PhD in the University of Cambridge in 2001. And then after that, I stayed. I worked at the universities, several different universities, and then eventually came to Bath from Oxford in 2012. So I did my PhD in Cambridge. Sorry, it's a little bit slow. And I've tried to sort of put in different colors the different transitions which happened to me. And why I wanted to highlight this is when I was starting to study at the university, it was quite important which specialization you're going to choose. Are you going to go to physics? Are you going to go to maths, computer science? And that pretty much predetermined what you're going to do in the future. So I chose to study natural sciences and mechanics. a bit random decision at the time, but then actually it was the best decision, which I did. That took me into studying materials, and then eventually all my life I studied materials, but I did change disciplines. I worked in physics, I worked in chemistry, I worked in materials departments, and it was fine. I was absolutely comfortable because the nature of what I did actually was exactly the same. So that was fine. So eventually going through sort of CV, I ended up coming to Bath because I really wanted to work with a couple of people who worked at Bath at the same time. And things actually have transitioned very rapidly after that. And the reason for this is because I gave birth to my daughter. So Nick already has highlighted the importance of kids here. For me, in 2010, I gave birth to my daughter. And I took her to be vaccinated. She was 5 days old. The doctor took out the vaccine from the fridge to vaccinate her. And I sort of asked very naively, why are you taking the vaccine from the fridge? Why does it have to be cold? And he said, look, if it warms up, it's going to spoil. So that started me thinking, why do they have to be stored in the fridges? Knew very little about vaccines, only that they prevent diseases. So I started researching, looking why do they have to be stored in the fridges. Found out completely horrific facts about vaccine spoiling and all of those things. So I started thinking, what can I do about it? What can be done from my point of view? I've been studying materials all my life, specifically silica-based materials. Can I use them to make vaccines stable? So that's what sort of led me on the journey to eventually start my company. And that was actually punctuated through some events which happened on the way. And some of them were quite good actually for me, because I then ended up gaining some awards on the way. So here was me getting a WISE award and then a biotechnology award, which then sparked actually quite some controversy in Kyrgyzstan, where then global voices have called me the symbol of resistance to sexism in Kyrgyzstan, which in a very patriarchal society actually was quite a good thing, because obviously for women to study science was quite unusual to start with, but then for women also women awards, going and doing something was again something completely unheard of. And later on, I also got an award, Hansen Medal, which was given to me for writing an article in Chemical Engineer. And when I was awarded this award, as you can see, it was super diverse. One of the award winners actually told me, wow, this is so diverse this year. We've got a guy from Hong Kong here. So this is what we're fighting against. So when I started thinking about vaccines, what I found out was this. Today, about a quarter of vaccines on average are spoiled before they're brought to their destination, before they're given to people, before they're injected into people. In some places in the world where there is no electricity, where there is no refrigerated truck, where there is no infrastructure to drive that truck, something like up to 50% or more of the vaccines spoil before they're being given to people. This is because all the way through, from when vaccines are made up until they're injected into people, they have to be refrigerated. The newest vaccines, the mRNA-based vaccines, have to be frozen. They have to be stored not just in the refrigerator, but at -25 or -80 degrees. So it's even worse. And that means that sometimes we just cannot bring vaccines to people. And that means that 1.5 million infants around the world are still dying from vaccine-preventable diseases. Just to give you a perspective on this, 1.5 million every year, it's about 1 every 20 seconds. Just think about it. 1 child every 20 seconds is dying from a disease which could have been prevented if we just vaccinated them. The cost is obviously spiraling on the cold chain problems. And sometimes even the temperature increase of several degrees can spoil the whole shipment, which is not great. This is what I saw first when I started looking at cold chain, why do so many vaccines spoil? I saw people carrying the cool boxes on the camelback, horseback, and that's what actually made me to decide, I want to solve this. I want to do something about it. I want to change this. I want to make vaccines stable so that they would not need refrigeration at all. So when I was looking at different vaccines, I found that there are 3 vaccines out there which actually don't need refrigeration at all. So it's smallpox, which was fully eradicated in 1980s. Rinderpest in cattle, again, fully eradicated in late 1980s. And then polio, which is almost eradicated. It's only in 3 countries today, which is raging around, but hopefully will be eradicated soon. What's interesting about these 3 vaccines is that they all 3 have a thermally stable formulations, which means that these vaccines can be transported without refrigeration at all. Why do vaccines spoil? So here is an animation of a protein as it's being heated. So it's being taken out of the fridge, it's being heated. What you see here is that amino acid chains are unfolding. Unfortunately, they cannot refold back majority of the time. Once it's unfolded, the active sites are exposed, vaccines spoil. And they spoil because majority of the active ingredients in vaccines would be made out of proteins, amino acid chains, because viruses are made out of amino acid chains and all the other bits too. So once it's unfolded, that's it, game over. An analogy, a good analogy here is an egg. So when we boil an egg, we start with the raw egg, which is liquid. When we boil it, it becomes solid because all of the amino acid chains inside it unfold, tangle up. We end up with a hard-boiled egg, and it cannot be unboiled back again. So I thought, can I use my beloved silica-based materials, which I've been studying for so many years, and apply it to vaccines? If we will look at the chemical formula of the silica, silica itself is also what sand is made of. Same formula, SiO2, is used in sand, and same formula I use in a lot of materials which I've been studying. It's a great material to work with. It's biocompatible. Children eat sand on the beach, don't get ill, don't die, because it's biocompatible. It gets through the body and comes out. So it's a material which is also very easy to work with, quite cheap. It's the largest component of the Earth's crust, so it's a great material to work with. I took an inspiration here from marine diatoms. So these are tiny creatures which live in the oceans and rivers all around the world. What they do is they excrete an enzyme which creates a shell around their body, and that shell protects them from the environment. And the reason why they are so different in their size and shape is because they create the shell to fit their body. So it's a tailor-made bespoke shell. And that's exactly what I wanted to do for the vaccines. So I came up with this method, which we call ensilication. And the whole idea was a little bit crazy in the beginning. Just makes sense now, obviously, but in the beginning it was a bit crazy. The idea was we have a protein, a virus, a viral particle, an enzyme, whatever the vaccine is made of, and let's create a bespoke shell, just like marine diatoms, which is going to fully tailor-made for that shape. And maybe then we will stop that physical unfolding of the amino acid chains, and we will stop the spoiling of the vaccines. When I first thought of this, it sounded super crazy, and I really honestly did not know whether it's going to work or not. It was 50-50. Started working on this. So I started about in 2010. The first experiments which worked were in 2014. The first patent we applied for was in 2017. So that gives you a scale of how long it took us to come up with the method. And then pandemic happened in 2020. But before that, lots of people were telling me, well, you need to spin out, you need to start a company, you need to commercialize this. And I was sort of resisting it for a long time. Sorry, I lost control of my slides here. So I was resisting it for a long time. Pandemic happened, and then in pandemic it became really abundantly clear we really need this method out there. We need this on the market. So we decided to start a company, and I started it with 3 of my co-workers. So Stephen Wells is a co-inventor of the method with me, and then Aswin and Matt are the 2 other co-founders who used to be my former PhD students. So 4 of us sort of embarked on this journey, and what was really great for us is that because there were 4 of us, we always had our backs together, which means that we were able to support each other all through this journey. And we played to the strengths of each other. And the whole idea here is very simple. We start with the vaccine, we put silica, we add silica to it, and we create a bespoke shell around that biological inside the vaccine. And once it's created, it does protect the vaccine from spoiling. It stops them from denaturation. I'm not going to bore you with lots of data. This is just one of the data we had. This is a really good one where we've actually done experiments on animals here. And here we've looked at tetanus vaccine, which was sent from Bath to Newcastle. We've sent several samples, some protected, some unprotected. The unprotected ones spoiled. You can see showing no signal. The protected ones show good immune response. So this was collected serum from blood from the mice, and we are basically monitoring how the immune response appears in groups of mice. And you can see here that we're getting the same response as from the normal vaccine. So I'm not going to bore you with more data here, but basically the method works. So just to give you again an overview of where we started with the company and where we are now. So we started in 2021, spun out from university in 2021. We got our first investment into the company in 22. It was super oversubscribed. Lots of people really got our message and really wanted to be on board with us. We were offered a lot of money. We had to say no to a lot, actually, to a lot of investors. We finalized the investment in 2022. We signed our first client in 2023. It's a biopharma company which creates vaccines for animals, and they wanted us to make them thermally stable. We've signed our second contract recently, and we then also last year got a big contract from the government. So this is a procurement government to create a fully thermally stable mRNA-based vaccine. So this is the vaccine which normally would require -80 storage, and we're trying to bring it to room temperature. We're currently speaking to about 3 different big companies who are vaccine producers, and we're trying to sign them in also so that we can work on their products. And since creation of the company, we started as 4, but now the company actually has 12 members who are working with us, and we're growing very rapidly. We're actually hiring more people at the moment and looking for more investments. Since that time when we start out, we've gone through a very long journey. We've got lots of awards, lots of recognition. Amazingly, this year we were nominated for the Earthshot Prize, even though we're actually not your typical ecological company, not a sustainability company, but lots of people can see the potential of removing cold chain completely, removing that dependence, and how much it can change, not just for the lives of people, but also for the environment. So that was great to see. So the last wisdom words, I guess, which I wanted to leave here is that don't be afraid of transitions. Transitions are really great. They force us to change, to evolve, to grow. It's always a phase. Since I became a parent, the advice was given me from the beginning, it's always a phase, it's always going to change. So if something is not working, just think of it, it's a phase, it's going to go away. And the last message I wanted to leave you with is please vaccinate yourself, your children, people around you, your loved ones, because vaccines do save lives. Thank you very much.
I've got a couple of questions. In the interest of time, I'll press on, which is this. Is it off the scale to say that this business might be a world changer? What's the competitive set? How does the landscape look for you?
So, absolutely.
Lean into that, yeah.
Absolutely.
Can we have this mic up, please? Thanks.
The business is massive. We think that it's gonna be. I don't like using those words, but yeah, it's a big game changer, because if we can make majority of the vaccines thermally stable, if we can bring vaccines to people all around the world, we can potentially save millions of lives all around the world. I mean, I mentioned the number 1.5 million infants, so these are children under 5, but actually if you look at all the people, adults plus adults too, that's about 6 million people every year who are dying from vaccine-preventable diseases, so potentially we can save millions of people, we can save millions of pounds or dollars when we don't need to store vaccines in the fridges. And yes, we can really disrupt the whole cold chain, distribution supply chain for the vaccines.
If I ask you to do, it's a bit of an exam question this, but a quick compare and contrast between the academic world and the commercial world. Does the academic world help because it requires rigor, analysis, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, whatever, or does it slightly hinder that the commercial world we all know is so much is happenstance? We may post-rationalise, but so much of what we do is direction of travel, but not the detail. How do you compare the two?
Great question, great question. So I think it's both. It both hinders and helps. Where it helps is, you're absolutely right, the rigor, the inquisitiveness, the tenacity. I mean, in the academic world also, we had to apply for grants, we had to apply for PhDs, and you do need tenacity. You do get lots of rejections from peer-reviewed journals, grants, and everything else. Same thing in entrepreneurship. You get lots of rejections, obviously, from different areas. But on the other hand, the hindrance also where it comes from is that as academics, we do overthink sometimes. So that's the thing which I'm trying to teach myself not to do, actually, a lot of the times.
To underthink?
To underthink sometimes,
Is that a thing?
yeah. So it's funny how, it's okay as an entrepreneur, it's okay for me to say, you know what, I don't feel like doing something. As a scientist, I could never say that. As a scientist, we had to have a scientific rationale. You have to say, I have data, that's why I'm not going to do that. But as an entrepreneur, actually, I can just say, you know what, my gut doesn't feel doing that or this decision. And it's okay, nobody questions it.
So when you look at the landscape for EnsiliTech, insofar as you can absolutely sort of project, well, what do you think are the key risks? Is it funding? Is it execution capability? Is it competitive set?
So I think the key risks for us, so there are several. So one of them is we obviously need to sign in the biopharma, because we are a B2B company, so we are working on the products which are made by other companies. So your big players like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Sanofi, they're the ones who produce vaccines. We are trying to tell them, guys, use our method, license from us, and make your vaccines thermally stable. So we need them to be on board with the message. So that's one risk where we want to obviously ensure that we sell to as many companies as possible. And we're really trying to work on that at the moment. And I think the other risk is the perception from public, because there's a lot of vaccine hesitancy today. And that's another big area where we're working. We're trying to really counter vaccine hesitancy. I really talk a lot about vaccine adoption by general public.
Well, I think you've had a flavour of quite a remarkable business. There's a couple of things here. One is that one question you had, which is why do vaccines have to be refrigerated? That is exactly the start point to so many different businesses. It's simply, why? Why does it have to be like this? That's the inquisitive, curious mind that drives so many entrepreneurs. The other, you briefly mentioned about award winning. We've got a session about our awards coming up in just a second. But I do just want to say that if everything goes anything like according to plan, it is quite extraordinary the number of lives that will be changed by this extraordinary technology, which is rooted in academia, rooted in research, and rooted in the West Country. Asel Sartbaeva, on all our behalves, thank you ever so much for today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.